That's right,
Okay.
School Mom. All right, we're a live Team Early AF podcast. Um, this is episode 100. This is a pretty big deal for me.
Wow.
I'm excited for this episode,
Yeah.
and I'm in my dark cave right here. If people watching, we're joined remotely because of the at home the what is it, the at home initiative or safer at home initiative
Safer at home.
going on right now. We are joined for episode 100 by my dear friend Sarah Lakewood.
Oh, thanks, Bill. It's
Hell
great
yeah,
to be here.
good. I'm glad you're
Uh,
pumped up as I am.
can, can I just say episode 100 and I'm down 100 pounds? How about that?
There you go.
Significant.
Props, mad props. So yeah, we'll definitely be diving into that as we go.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
uh, I'll do my intro of Sarah, and then Sarah can introduce herself. So
Okay.
Sarah and I briefly met, if I remember correctly. The garden guru gave a presentation at um, Stevens Point Area Co-op, and I think you and I were the only ones talking.
Oh, yep. Yes, I do remember that.
Initially, right? Surprise, surprise.
Yes.
You and I doing all the talking, because it was you,
Imagine.
yeah, right. You and your wife, and then
Uh-huh.
a good, nice, intimate group of people learning about home gardening and ways we can improve upon that. So I met you briefly
Yeah.
there, and
Yep.
then we became like BFFs at Farm Shed's Food Fair, or the local food fair,
Yep.
whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Sarah
Yep.
was the MC, and I was serving up soup shots with Jan.
Soup shots.
Soup shots. Get your soup
Soup
shots.
shots. Exactly. That was
uh,
such a fun day.
it
Oh
was
my
a it
gosh.
was a great day. It was a great day. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
you were kind enough to come on and co-host a episode
Oh.
with Alicia, which was awesome. I had a
hmm
blast there.
hmm
And then
Episode number 95, in case you want to
yes.
go look it up.
I'll make sure I link all the things that you've been a part of in the show notes.
Okay.
And we didn't have there's not enough time to cover two people as in-depthly as we would like, and that was part of the seasonal AF series. So definitely wanted to, for both of us to focus on Alicia. But after
Right.
you and I getting to know each other a little bit more and hearing your story, I thought you'd be a perfect fit for episode 100. Kind of the idea of this podcast was so initially it was, I work in a gym, coach people, hour a day of fitness. Well, what does the other 23 hours of the day look like?
hmm
And it could be from everything from food to hunting, outdoor recreation, coaching, orthopedics, blah 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 blah. And the biggest thing I like doing is the thing I've come to love the most about this podcast is sharing stories, journeys that people have had in life, in wellness, in health. And your story, from what I've learned so far, is pretty badass. So I thought it would make a perfect episode 100. So here we are.
Here we are.
It was long winded.
Episode 100.
I need some coffee. So Sarah, with that,
Okay.
uh,
Yes.
maybe introduce yourself, name, where you're from,
Okay.
where you grew
Yep.
up,
Sure.
and then we'll go from there.
Well, Bill, I think you could probably agree with me if I tell you that if you know me for 5 minutes or know really anything about me, that you would agree that the word resilient or resilience would certainly describe me to a T.
I would agree with that.
Um, and especially through this last part of my journey, the last year, which has been life transformative for sure. Um, I am Sarah Lakewood. I am 54 years old. I was born in Coronado, California. Yes, actually, I am a California girl, but that's all I can claim because I spent most of my life in the Midwest. So
You made the right
anyway,
move. You made the right move.
yeah, I did. I made the right move. My father was in the Navy, so we traveled around a lot, especially in my younger years. From Coronado, California, we moved to Corpus Christi, Texas, and we lived there until I was about 5. And then in 1969, we moved back to Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is the home state of both of my parents. So we lived there until 1977. My dad was a naval aviator. So when we moved to Minneapolis, he got out of the Navy and went to fly for Northwest Orient Airlines. And So he flew commercially for a while, short time, and it was a great life. But he really was missing all of his kids and his wife because he was married to his beeper, not his family. So he got out of commercial flying, was laid off actually in the first oil crunch in the early 70s, and he got out of commercial flying and started in general aviation, which was just starting to take off in the 70s, literally. So he had a friend of his who actually got a job with Procter and Gamble, flying for Procter and Gamble in Green Bay in the late 70s. So my dad said, if you hear of any jobs over there, Duffy, let me know. And sure enough, the Wapaka Foundry called my dad, and my dad went down there to interview with them in 1977 and became their chief pilot, which is what brought us from Minnesota to Wisconsin. None of us had any idea what the hell a foundry was. And we'd never heard of Wapaka. It's like, why the fuck would you ever go there? We lived in nice suburban Minneapolis,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we moved to a town of like 3,500 people at the time. Oh, I guess maybe it might have been 4,000. So that was quite a transition at 12 years old, because that's how old I was at the time. But, and my dad, he was their chief pilot, the Foundry's chief pilot, till 2000 when he retired. So it was kind of fun, though, having a dad who had a unique job, because we got to fly lots of places still, got to stay in the air, which was fun.
Oh yeah.
And I enjoyed that a lot. But and he always he had some. We have some great stories. One of my favorite stories is I have two siblings, a sister who is 2 years younger than me, and a brother who's almost 10 years younger. Well, my sister was a softball player, and my dad would often fly to like Detroit and back because one of their largest, or they were owned by the Bud Company, which was in Detroit. So he would make that trek back and forth. And he would often, have to miss a lot of Jenny's softball games. So, but we would always know when he was coming home because he would fly in, then all of a sudden you could hear it over the softball field, and he would tip his wing and then continue flying over. So it was like, oh yeah, Dad's going to be here in a little while.
Oh wow, that's what an
Because he was flying
entrance.
in and he was checking out the game and the scoreboard as he was
All
going to
right.
land at the Wapaka airport. It was pretty awesome.
Nice. I like it.
So anyway, that's a little bit about me. I've been living here in Stevens Point proper since probably 2012 is when Sandy and I bought our house.
Okay.
And but I've always lived around in this area. I went to college for a short time in Minnesota, and then I couldn't really decide what side of the St. Croix I should live on for a while. But Wisconsin eventually won out, and I've been here for, well, my daughter and I moved back in 1994. So since 94, I've been a full-time Wisconsin resident. But
Nice. Well,
anyway,
I wanna
anyway,
dive back to your childhood a
yeah,
little bit, and maybe this will be
yeah.
a preface for the sorry about the wiener dog. She wants attention.
Oh,
Uh, so and we can maybe tease the Lakewood name a little bit, but
sure.
what was outdoor recreation like for you growing up?
Oh, absolutely. In 1967, my family bought a brand new Ford truck and a Dreamer camper, over the cab camper. And we went everywhere in that thing. So my whole childhood, every vacation we had, we would take off in the camper. So, and then when we finally got to Minneapolis, my dad's family was from northern Minnesota. So every summer we would spend at least a week up in his hometown at the city park at Lake Lamond, and then we would camp there all week long. So camping was big in my family. We never owned a boat, but we had a canoe.
Okay.
So we did a lot of canoeing. My dad and my brother were both hunters. My dad more so bow than gun hunting, but they did both. We did some fishing. I love to catch panfish. I still do. So yeah, outdoor activities were really popular for us. And I was not an overweight child. We were always very busy and active.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until my 20s that the weight started to pack on. It wasn't until I actually got pregnant with my daughter, Emily, and I gained 75 pounds in the pregnancy. So that was kind of the tip of the iceberg that sort of sent me down that whole morbid obesity path. But
Mm.
but yeah, outdoor. Going back to what your question was yeah, outdoors were really important to us.
Awesome. I wanted to make sure we covered that because I knew it's a
Yeah.
big, big focal point for you. And
Yes.
when we get,
Still is.
yeah, exactly. So when we get to more about the name, your name, we can
Oh
definitely
yes.
dive into that more. But
Yeah.
and if we can cover that first, or I'd like
Sure.
to talk since you just mentioned it, in your 20s,
Mm-hmm.
um, was it was looking back, was there a reason, was what was going on in your life that
Yeah.
may have facilitated the transformation in your body, and then maybe lead that into becoming pregnant with Emily, becoming a
Sure.
mom. What did that all look
Yeah.
like for you, looking back at it now?
Sure. Well, when I graduated from high school, I weighed 135 pounds. I was 5'9" and so I was kind of a stick. But I was very well endowed on the top. I had large breasts, and so for me, it was kind of like it was a self-esteem thing because I felt like nobody ever saw me, and so all they ever saw were my breasts because they were large, and so it was kind of I went down a very dark path, mental health wise, as a young woman in my 20s, and so that really was kind of the impetus of nobody really only people don't see me for me, they only see my shell, and I and it took me down a really dark path. But so I went through some rough patches as a young 20 something girl, and mostly with, self esteem, that sort of thing. But, and then at 24, I became pregnant with my daughter, Emily, and I gained, like I said, I gained 75 pounds. And the baby weight never really came off after that. It just started to continue to pack on. And I was a struggling single mom. I struggled with depression, and it was a tough time. Um, I won't lie about that. It was my 20s were tough for me, but I loved being a mom. I thought I was a decent mom. I loved the life that that child brought into my life, and so that was the thing that sort of kept me going. That and the fact that I'm an optimist and I am a resilient person. So if I am sent with a challenge, I want to make sure that I overcome it. And sometimes I did it well, and sometimes I did it not very gracefully. So, but thank God for the parents that I have because they have been with me every step of the way. They still are. They're 82 and 78, and I wouldn't be here without them or my siblings. Both my sister and my brother have been with me all the way through it, and I'm grateful for that. And my daughter Emily too. She was a real light in our life.
Shout out to amazing family for sure.
Yes,
Thanks for
yes,
thanks for sharing all that. That's
yep.
powerful, and I know
It is.
it can't be easy to kind
Hey,
of
but at
revisit.
54 and looking back, it's like, you have some road miles on you now,
Yeah,
and you
right.
feel like you still have something to give. And so whenever I have a chance to help somebody through a rough patch, I'm right there.
Yeah,
Um, because that's the kind of person that I am, because I know what it's like to walk in other people's shoes or shoes of people who are listening to a lot of negative self talk or people who are struggling with depression and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can make it through. You can get off the medications for, um, that sort of thing. Because I haven't been on any depression medications for more than 16 years. So I consider myself a, a positive role model, if you will, somebody who is, you know, you can, you, there's good things that will come down if you can come down the line to you if you just hang on. It does get better. So
I love it. It's a great message. So
thanks.
I want to ask you about, so there's working in the field I work in,
Mm-hmm.
and just being like, I'm super interested in the storytelling for people when they come in, they want to work out, they want to improve, or I should say, kind of strengthen the good habits they have. For yourself, like you said, you're 54 now. Your 20s
Hmm.
were almost, if you break up your life into chapters or books, this is like
Sure.
it's another lifetime ago. In these,
Yeah.
if we look at how we chunk it up, and I think kind of how you're describing it, you've put these miles on. Looking at how you view life now, um, from a mental and physical standpoint. So some of us, we have, like you talked about, we have these shells that we're born
Hmm.
with. We have no control over leading up into our 20s, and we eat, we I don't know, we what do I want to say, stress eat, we stress exercise, we
Hmm.
take on these lifestyle habits that may or may not be good for us, but they're under our control. So
Right.
for yourself, what's kind of your thoughts on being at home in your body? Where does the mental I don't know, mental plan or mental health come into that idea?
Uh, I guess for me, it was, I kind of had to come to, this is going to sound funny probably, but I had sort of like a come to Jesus moment where it was like, okay, you could either go down this path and be an unhealthy person, be a victim, be somebody who is stuck in negativity um, and just feel bad. Or you could choose another path and make some real life changes, um, and change your attitude. I don't know how really else to describe it, but I think my innate personality, like I said, I'm an optimist. I'm a resilient person. I want to know what's around the next corner. So I really saw myself going down that other road, to becoming a survivor, somebody who can pick themselves up by their bootstraps and reinvent themselves and move forward. And and in that process too, I learned lots of things about myself. You were talking about chapters. In my 20s, I was still trying to figure out who I was. I was somebody's mom, so I had that identity. But I had to try to figure out who I was on the inside, and I struggled with that because I had family members telling me I should be one thing. I had myself who was conflicted on the inside. I didn't know who I was, and then I had a good core group of friends who were fun to hang out with, and they also had some of same shared some of the same opinions that my family did, in the fact that, you're such an optimist, you're such a ray of sunshine, you're such a leader. Why are you so stuck in this bad place? um, and it wasn't until my 30s where I started to piece things together, and then I figured out who I was. First of all, I discovered I was gay. So that was like, that whole coming out process was huge for me, because it wasn't until that I came out to myself that I really felt comfortable in my own skin. So I think for me, that was part of it. That was the first piece. And then as I went through my
Can
30s,
we? I'm sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you, but I wanna
no,
flesh that part out more.
yeah, absolutely.
Because that's for myself. That's been the biggest come to Jesus moment with my friends, and
Hmm.
realizing like the privilege I have and never having to go through that suffering, that
Hmm.
struggle of, well, I
Hmm.
don't I don't match up with this pop culture idea of what a person is supposed to be with the shell they're born with. And
Yeah.
so like you're talking about figuring that out in your 30s. What
Hmm.
at so your 30s, let's dive back. What is American culture? What's the year? What does the environment look like for a young Sarah at 30 having to figure this all out?
Let's see. I turned 30 in 1995. So, and it was another probably 4 years. It wasn't until probably 1999 that I really came out to myself, and I had to do that first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was 35 when I came out to myself first, and then I had to figure that out. I don't know how to describe it. All I know is that I had a relationship at that point with a woman who really awakened that in me, and we had long heart-to-heart talks about things. But um, it wasn't until then that I actually had the opportunity to have a relationship with a woman where I realized that's who I am. This is who I am. I guess for me, I also have a sister who's gay. So, and she came out when she was still in college, and she's 2 years behind me. So she's known like her whole life that she's gay. And I didn't figure it out until I was later in life. But the process is still the same, and the end result is still the same. I'm a happy person. I know who I am now. I'm comfortable in my skin. And so for me, and in the 90s too, it was still like, I think that was after Ellen came out on television. So and Katie Lang was very popular. Melissa Etheridge was very popular. It was kind of a cool secret still, to be a lesbian in the mid 90s. But but it was still sort of a secret. And I was kind of one of those, like I said, some things you do gracefully, some things you don't do so gracefully. But when I came out to my family and friends, I was just like, this is who I am. So you can take it or leave it. But they were all like, but you're so happy now. So I guess maybe we need to think about this. And my mom and dad struggled a lot at first. And my sister was very supportive. So that was helpful. But and it took me a couple of relationships to find the right one, because obviously Sandy and I have been together now for almost 16 years. So she's the one for sure. But and I'm so lucky. And she's the one that put together or helped. We put our name together. So I said together about 800 times. But anyway, she's the reason why we have the name we have. So, and we can dive into that
Oh,
whenever you
definitely,
want to.
definitely. I love it. Oh,
Uh-oh.
that's why I got the mute button right here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when wiener dogs hear random noises. With with going back to relationships, finding Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
your parents had a difficult time. You're getting a lot of
Yes.
good support from your sister and your friends.
Yes.
What
Yes.
if you can think back? What were some things, some habits, some lifestyle affirmations you were providing for yourself through this process?
Oh.
Like you talked about, you're a natural leader. You're outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta mess with you.
I'm an extrovert for sure.
Yeah. What if you can think back? What did the mental landscape and environment look like for yourself that you were kind of building and crafting and experimenting with and throwing away what wasn't working for you? What did that look like?
Um, well, I had some really great friends who were fantastic listeners, still are today. I mean, and you can probably attest to this too. There are people that cross your path in life who become much more than friends. They really do become the family you choose. And not to say that you minimize your biological family, but those people that cross your path day in and day out, who really become your intimate, your people. And so I have some really good core friends that way, which really helped me. Um, and and laughter, I mean, laughter is huge, and being able to enjoy yourself and do silly, stupid things. I'm such a geek. I own a zillion type of hats. So on St. Patrick's Day, I'm wearing the shamrock head, you know, antenna, antenna, and I have a jester hat that has light up bulbs on the end of it. I mean, I'm kind of a nerd geek that way. You were talking about herb nerds a while ago with the garden gurus. I just loved it because I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of that girl too. Not so much to stand out in a crowd, but to bring joy to other people. And I can do self-deprecating humor, and if I can bring joy to somebody else, that energizes me as well, because like I said, I'm an extrovert, so I gain energy from other people. So in gaining that energy from other people, it's usually positive energy, and that positive energy transforms me, and it helps your mood. And like I said, laughter is good. Being outdoors is where I feel closest to God, and where I feel magic. If that makes sense to you, I think it probably
I
does.
that makes all of the sense to me.
Yeah.
I loved what you said about um, loving family and friends, and
Hmm.
how you love your family for who they are, right?
Yes, absolutely.
If you're fortunate enough, like I can think about my mom. She grew up in a very abusive household, both physically and
Hmm.
sexually, and
Hmm.
she she's like, when I talk to her about this today, and it's taking years of kind of her and I having very very short conversations, because I can only imagine how difficult it is for her. And she's an introvert, but she's
Hmm.
very reflective, but it takes a lot of conversation, and this is with her oldest son, to get the
Hmm.
details and how she was feeling. And that woman, even to this day, can still find like a kernel of love for her own
Hmm.
mother in the
Hmm.
terrible situation she was in. And I'm
Hmm.
just like, that you're like, I talked to her and I'm like, you're just an amazing soul. Like, I have nothing but like anger and hatred for those grandparents. Like
Hmm.
I didn't meet them until I was like 10 or 11, and I
Oh wow.
was like refused to say anything but mean things because
Hmm.
I was just angry about the whole thing.
Sure.
And so, what you're talking about, like, you love your family for who they are, and then in this
Hmm.
journey of life, um, we can be, as long as we take that responsibility seriously, like you're talking about, and we meet and learn to love our friends, like the people our
Hmm.
intimate friends that we bring into this close knit circle. And like you're talking about, where everyone can kind of provide this energy system that we can all
Yeah.
live off of and grow from and be challenged by. So
Hmm.
it's a cool, it's awesome that you were able to learn that and craft that
Oh,
through such a challenging time in your life. I
believe
love it.
me, my mom and I clashed. Like, oh my gosh, not oh my gosh. I hated my mother growing up, and I don't think she liked me that much either, because for probably for the most part is because we are cut from a very similar cloth. She was the oldest of four. I'm the oldest of three. She was a leader. She was bossy. I'm a leader. I'm bossy. So we were like oil and water growing up. But I'll tell you this right now: at 54 and she's 78, I can't spend enough time with my. And we laugh at some of the that that are similar about us now because we can. You we do as you do get older, things sort of start to mellow out a little bit, and small things don't bother you so much. It doesn't bother me if Sandy doesn't um what's the word I'm trying to think. If Sandy leaves something on the counter, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's like, and in a former life that would be like, oh my gosh, why would you do that? But those little day-to-day things just drop off. It's living with somebody. But like I said, I can't spend enough time with my mom now. But growing up, we really struggled, the two of us, because of that. She was right, and she was, like I said, she was right, and she was bossy, but so was I.
Mm-hmm.
So there.
Yep.
But like I said, and it's a tough time. I think it's being a firstborn, you're thrust in a kind of a different role in your family too. I mean, there's a lot of responsibility placed on you as the firstborn because you are number one.
Yep.
But what does that look like? to are we all natural leaders as firstborns? No, but and are we all bossy? No, but you know, but on the other hand, some of us are. So, and my brother and sister will probably tell you stories about that too. But we're getting off the subject now.
Oh, mine,
I'd like
my
to.
siblings would be right
I'd,
up there with you, or your siblings. Yeah, let's revert back to. I
yeah.
think we've created this great narrative for the mental, spiritual,
Yes.
uh, like friendship, love energy for yourself.
Yes.
Let's go
Yes.
back to the outdoor space. What does
Yep.
outdoor recreation look like for you during this period and then into the present? Where has that played its part?
Well, during the dark times, I didn't really have a lot of outdoor space because I was busy trying to hold down a couple of jobs and raise a child by myself, and so that was rough. Um, but once I met Sandy, who was a very outdoor person, she was born and raised on a farm in Michigan, in downstate Michigan, southwestern Michigan. So she was outside all the time, and her mother was outside all the time. So she really helped reintroduce that back into my life. But I had some friends who had a cabin up north, and we started going up there in 1998, my daughter and I, and just having a cabin and being outside all day up there. Because the campfire was always going. The kids were out in the lake swimming. We took the canoe out. Sometimes we'd rent a pontoon boat and go fishing. Sometimes we would just take the pontoon boat out and go and drink cocktails. I mean, so and so it was like those simpler times. Or we would go up and spend a day at Lake Superior, and there is where the lake comes from in the name, Lakewood. Because Lake Superior has always been a very special, healing, spiritual place for me. And unbeknownst to me, that was also Sandy's solace place, was Lake Superior. And so as we met and started to fall in love, it was really the lake that brought us together, because she lived up in the UP, just outside of Marquette, Michigan. And the reason why she moved up there from downstate Michigan was because she wanted to be closer to Lake Superior. And when she told me that, it just blew me away, because I was like, really? You love the lake as much as I do? Oh, I love you.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
no, I can completely
But
relate
for
with that.
now, yes. So outdoors. So what it looks like now is every chance we can get to be outside, we are, and every chance we can get to be up in the UP, we do, because that's where we feel that we can chillax and be away from people. And we'll go out to a beach. We'll drive down to the end of a dead end road, anywhere in the Keweenaw Peninsula, anywhere up in the UP. That ends at the lake, and we get out, and there's no cell phone signal. And honestly, we get out of the car and we cheer, because it's like, no one can reach us here.
Yep, I love it. We
Yep,
have similar spiritual practices in this household. With
absolutely good.
so I wanna dive back into the
Hmm.
single mom outdoor equity space. So
Okay.
my I always think about my grandma. She was a single mom, 6 kids, like running around like a crazy person,
Yep.
and the conversations I regret not having with her because I wasn't mentally at a state where I was ready to have those conversations, and then she was
Sure.
taken from us so abruptly. I would
Oh.
love to pick your brain about, for people listening, maybe there's single
Hmm.
moms listening or people that know single moms. What what are some things that we could do as a community to help those single moms so they have time to, breathe. Maybe it's just to go to a park for like a moment of quiet
Hmm.
and 5 deep
Hmm.
breaths. And then they can go back to kicking ass and all of the chaos that is being a mom. I don't know. I don't even know if my question makes sense, but
It does.
What are your
It does
thoughts
make sense.
now that you're removed from the trenches?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back to single mom life and how outdoor recreation was such an important part of you, but like you're talking about, you're working multiple jobs. You have this
Yeah.
mantle of mom thrust upon you that you take very seriously, and it
Mm-hmm.
it fulfills parts of your life. But at the same time, right? It pours. You're taking so much energy out. What are some ways we could, I don't know, help foster that recovery, that alone time for moms, so they can still enjoy the outdoor space?
One one thought I had was as I was going through, as I was a single mom, I was thinking the sense of community that it does take a village to raise a child is very true. Um, and if there was a time that I could maybe take someone else's child and watch them so that mom could go and do something fun and get outside and, like you said, take 5 deep breaths, I would certainly do that. And I would do that even today. I think, because as an older person now, I have a lot more patience for kids than I did when I was raising my own. Because I have a lot more patience with my niece and nephew than I ever did with my own daughter. Um, and they're 11 and 15. So, and one of the things that I've tried to do as an aunt is to get them out doing things, and to give their parents a break. So, and that's always been fun. So, as a community, I think that if there was some kind of respite care network of people that could get together and say, "I'll take your kids so that you can go and do this, go ride your bike," or something like that. That would be helpful. I know for myself, in Emily, there were some friends of ours who would take us and we would go on bird watching tours, or we would go and hunt fossils in Door County, or if we involved our kids in something that was sciency and made it fun, then they were all about that too, because then it was like an adventure. We made it like a field trip, and so that was always a good thing too. And Emily, she enjoyed that a lot. Now she's a third grade teacher, so I know some of those adventures that we went on were inspiring to her as well. So yeah, it's a community. Let's get together, do respite care. I know that there are networks of single moms out there who find each other, because they do. Because I know I had several friends who were single moms, and we would watch each other's kids, so somebody could go in and enjoy some time alone. So I think that would be, one idea that I have.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
So we're back at the lake, dead end roads.
Yes.
Shout out
Yes.
shout out Jared Linsmeyer. He brought some
Oh.
acknowledgement and appreciation for dead end roads last year on social media, and I made sure to
Uh-huh.
share some of my favorite dead end roads. Not their exact location, because I don't want a bunch of uh,
Right.
transient loopers showing up at my dead ends, but no, um, just the overall awareness and respect for dead end roads. I lived on a,
Yes.
dead end road growing up, so I have a special love for those areas, and we lived right off of a creek. So I
Oh,
also I
awesome.
also share your love and appreciation for bodies of water. Where
Hmm.
does the wood then come from?
The wood actually comes from my whole life. I love the woods. I love being in the woods. I am not, don't hand me a leash to my dog and then say, okay, go walk around 6 blocks in the neighborhood, to walk the dog. That
I can
boring.
I can uh
Ugh.
I can respect that.
But put some hiking boots on me and hand me the leash and say, go hike that trail for however long and see where it takes you into the woods. Yeah, I'm all over that. So we'll see you in a sec in several hours, because there's healing in the woods. There's magic in the woods. There are edible things in the woods. There's wildlife in the woods. Now I know you're a big hunter, and you love to watch, and you're a birder too, and you've got your swamp dog Django, and I love watching all of your adventures together, because I'm right there with you
No.
spiritually.
Oh, it's the
um,
it's the best.
it is the best. So that's where, and woods. from the time I was a little girl, all the way now, even. Sandy is also a woods person, so that's where Lakewood comes from. Lake for Lake Superior, and woods for any chance that we can get out and hike together in the woods. So that's the name. And so we'll go down that road quickly.
Yeah, go down it.
2014, 2014, marriage equality came to Wisconsin. And so on the advice of our attorney, who is a close family friend of ours, shout out Tom Johnson, um, he suggested that we actually married in Canada, in Toronto, in 2005. And we did it there because it was legal in Canada, but it was not yet legal here in the States. So, but then in 2014, when marriage equality came to Wisconsin, on the advice of our attorney, he said, well, why don't you get married here? It's just easier. And I said, okay, let's do it. So we got married actually on the 10th anniversary of our first date, which is November 5th, 2004 was our first date. We got married in Wisconsin on November 5th, 2014 in our living room on Walker Street. And then we went to PJ's and had a big celebration. We rented their celebration room and had a bunch of people over for dinner. It was fun. And then the next day, actually, was it the next day? We decided then that we would go and register our new names with the Social Security office. So we got down there and we had our marriage certificate and all that other kind of stuff. And she's like, well, where does the name Lakewood come from? And we're like, well, we made it up. And she said, well, that's nice, but you can't do that. And I said, why not? We just, you can't just change your name when you get married? No. I could take Sandy's name, she could take my name, we could hyphenate our names, or we could make up a name with the letters of our old last names. But we couldn't just choose our own last name. And I thought, really? Really? So at the time, I called Julie Loss's office. She was the senator that preceded Patrick Testin. And I called her office in Madison and verified that. And sure enough, you can't just choose your name when you get married in Wisconsin. You can in Michigan, you can in Illinois, and you also can in Minnesota. At the time of marriage, you can change your name to whatever you want, but you can't do that in Wisconsin. So Sandy and I were in talks with Julie Loss's office, and she said, well, maybe it's time to change the state statute here in Wisconsin. Because what that meant was we had to file for a formal name change and go through the court system and pay the $350 and then publish it in the paper and go through all that rigmarole just because we wanted to change our names. And so Julie said, she was super close to introducing this bill in 2016, and then she lost her reelection bid. So the bill didn't go anywhere after that, and I'm kind of sad about it. But she wanted to call it the Lakewood Law, and for that reason. And we thought, it's not even going to just benefit gay people. It would benefit any couple who wanted to choose their name at the time of marriage. And so we figured it was, something that would be good for all Wisconsinites. But it never got off the ground, which was really unfortunate. But their team, Julie's team in Madison, was absolutely phenomenal. They had contacted the Social Security Administration. They had done all of their homework to find out that, in fact, Michigan, Illinois, and Minnesota had similar laws where you could change your name to whatever at the time of marriage. And so it was time to bring the Wisconsin law into the 21st century. And it fell flat, unfortunately. And we went through the court system and legally changed our name to Lakewood, but it shouldn't be that difficult. And we found out that it's an old Scandinavian custom. So in Scandinavia, if you were to marry somebody and decided that you were going to go live in the woods, then you could become woodsman. You were no longer Peter's daughter or Johnson's son. You could be, you could be Lakeman or Woodson or however you wanted to do that, to name yourself, which, so to us, it made sense. But So that's where it came from, Lake and Wood, and we just put it together. And it was one that we made up, but it's one that totally describes us, and it's so much easier sharing a last name. Oh my gosh, we were not we were not hyphen girls at all. I did not want to be a Peterson Sandin, and she did not want to be a Sandin Peterson, and that was a long mouthful to say anyway. And so Lakewood, and it, like I said, it defined us as a couple.
Uh,
So there you go.
I I love all of that. First off, what do we need to do to make the Lakewood law a thing? Who do we need to
I don't
we
know.
need to push
I don't
back for that?
know.
I'm on board.
Did we
Uh,
talk to Katrina Shanklin and,
yeah,
maybe,
we might
but
have
it's
to.
like there's so many things going on right now that
Yeah.
it's kind of, low on the totem pole,
I
but
but I don't I don't think it's that low because the what
oh,
we've been talking about this entire podcast, the idea of identity and
mm-hmm,
acknowledging that when you're born with a certain shell, you're born with your name, you have no control over any of this, right? How
yeah,
cool of a gesture is it to allow people to change that? Like we're
yeah,
taking on this new exciting part of our lives. We're getting married.
right,
Why the
yeah,
hell shouldn't you be able to like pick what you want to be called? Because
hell yeah.
you talked about from the gay gay lesbian world or trans world
Yeah,
or whomever, but I'm also thinking about from like a cultural racist point of view. Like how many times
mm-hmm,
has someone read a name and right away stereotypes or judgment is pushed down upon them. I'm
mm-hmm,
thinking about going back to being the oldest sibling. Like that was happening on a I wouldn't say malicious level, like economically or politically for some, like I know happens for some people based on their name, but my siblings would come into a class for a teacher I had and they'd read their name
mm-hmm,
and be like, "Oh shit, you're Bill's sibling." And right,
yep. Oh
that
yeah,
they're
yeah,
labeling my sibling based on their experience with me. Well, I
yeah,
guarantee you that happens with people of certain ethnicities or cultures or just when they have children, I call their children baby or like no, like that's a conversation you have with this person
yeah,
as they live life, experience, have this, live their journey. Maybe they agree to it,
mm-hmm,
but yeah, it's something
mm-hmm,
I've recently started with some of my friends, and they get all like pissy at first, like this is the name I gave them. I'm like, you don't have
yeah.
control over them. You're you brought you brought them into this world. Your job is to make sure they're not like a terrible person.
Right,
You don't get to decide what their name is. Like,
right,
uh, but people think I'm crazy. But that's just how. So when you're talking about the Lakewood law, I think there's so much potential in that, and the power to be like to give someone that ability to be
yeah,
like, hey, what do you want to be called? Like,
right,
what do you want your title to be? I think that's huge.
right,
Um,
right.
so thanks for
I
sharing that.
still think that it would be a viable change to the statute. It's just a matter of talking to the right people and getting it going again.
Yeah,
I honestly believe that, but very few people know that that's the way that the law is here in Wisconsin. So there you go.
there you go. All right,
So
I'm
let's
gonna get
go.
off the name thing. What were you gonna
Yeah,
say?
let's. No, I was just going to say, let's get off the name thing. I want to get back to talking about health and fitness.
Yes, that's where I wanted to go. I'm glad we're on the
Yeah.
same.
Okay.
That's why we're BFFs. So
That's why we're BFFs.
bringing it back to the health and wellness journey. I know we're almost at an
Yes.
hour. Holy crap,
Yeah.
flying by. But so like you said, this last year has been like this huge moment in this journey.
Yes.
Elaborate on that.
Okay. So I have some show notes for myself here.
I like it.
So I was diagnosed with high blood pressure in the late 90s. I was in my 30s. And then in 2002, I was diagnosed with severe obstructive sleep apnea because I snored terribly and I would stop breathing and it was bad. So, and then in 2010, I was diagnosed as a diabetic and I struggled with deciding on bariatric surgery because there were a couple of people that were sort of close to me that had the surgery and neither one was very successful. They had a lot of complications afterwards and, it's a permanent restructuring of your digestive system. And I after watching them struggle, I said, there's just no freaking way. I mean, I would rather die a fat person than be a thin person and then have all of these health struggles afterwards. I just thought, what's the point? I have health struggles now as a fat person. I would have health struggles afterwards. So I was scared. And honestly, I was just plain scared. But my diabetes continued to worsen, and then, well, my numbers kept going up. My A1C kept going up. I developed some really bad neuropathy in my feet that is now permanent damage. So I got to the summer of 2018. Just walking across the parking lot, I would get winded. I would have less than 5,000 steps in a day. I mean, well, it was just hard to move. Um, so I had another come to Jesus moment. My BMI was 47. I was 320 pounds. And I said, I can't live like this either. I can't. So I contacted Marshfield Clinic, and I attended one of their bariatric informational seminars. And actually, my wife Sandy went with me because we both said to each other that I was not going to go through this alone. She was going to be my rock, and she has been rock star caregiver. Shout out to Sandy, because oh my gosh,
Sh-
she is
Shout out
it.
Sandy, badass Sandy.
Yeah, she is. So I was 320 pounds. My BMI was 47. And I started their program at Marshfield Clinic on August 29th, 2018. And it was a pretty rigorous program. I had to do a complete psychiatrical evaluation. I had to meet with a dietitian 3 times. I had to go to their bariatric support group at least 3 times to get credit for being an active part of their program. And so then my surgery was finally scheduled and approved. I had surgery on March 5th, 2019, so just over a year ago. And in a year, I'm currently 204 pounds and I have a BMI of 30. So I lost 116 pounds so far from starting the program, and I couldn't be more excited about life. And for the first 3 weeks, I will be quite honest, it was not pleasant. I really had a tough time bouncing back. And so then I started listening to that negative self-talk about how, you know, this was the wrong decision. Now you're going to be like the rest of those people, and but honestly, the last really bad day I had was April 23rd, 2019. And the only reason why I remember that day is because it's my nephew's birthday. But after that was a real turning point. Last summer was the summer of learning how to ride a bike again, because I haven't been on one in 16 years. I learned that I could strap on my hiking boots, and I could hike for 5 or 6 miles and not 500 yards. I mean, it was last summer was transformative as I lost weight, and I can't wait for this summer to be outside as much as possible, because at 204 pounds anything is possible. So for me now, it's about fine tuning and gaining definition and muscle tone back because of the fast weight loss that I had. It was kind of like things were kind of like, okay, well, you lost all this weight, but now you're kind of a weak link. so so I need to work on some of those things. But it was life transformative, and I still go to the bariatric support group at Marshfield Clinic. Their program is very rigorous, but I highly recommend it. And I am not a paid spokesperson by any stretch of the imagination. I am only going off of my own experience. The team there is dedicated to all of their patients for sure. They have, and so bringing that whole thing back full circle then, through the bariatric support group at Marshfield Clinic, they approached me when they found out, because I got up on my soapbox one day at a support group on local food. And I was talking up the local food fair and also what great options we have here in central Wisconsin for local food. And then I kind of found my voice because the facilitator asked me if I would be willing to share my story and bring in some farm shed people perhaps and do a presentation on local food to the bariatric support group. I was like, hell yeah! Yeah, exactly. Ah! And so I contacted Lane, who was the executive director then, and a bunch of my farm friends, Joel Keenhold from Lonely Oak Farm, and Kat from Cattail Organics, and then Alicia Rasby from Holy Time. And all three of them and I did a presentation to the bariatric support group last September. It was very well received, so well received that they asked us to come back again. So we did another one in January. And I think their thinking at Marshfield Clinic is to bring us in every January so that we can talk up the local food fair. Because it's such a wonderful experience and a fantastic opportunity to network with local food farmers and producers uh, and for a chance for that audience to have exposure to those resources that are located right here super close to them. So that's really my soapbox now. That's really where my focus is getting healthy, getting the word out about local food, and to help others who are struggling right now with weight and weight decisions, whether surgery is right for them or lifestyle changes and changing their relationships with food. That there are some great resources right here in our backyard.
I love it. I was one of the things that popped up in my head. I was like, how are you? You should have a leadership role there with that program. So I'm happy to see you do, because
Well,
it's
honestly, right now they're working on maybe a mentor program, and they've already told me that I'm on the short list. So
we'll call
there you
that the Lakewood Effect, kind of like
go. The Lakewood Effect.
ripples
Yeah.
out into the lake. How your
Yes.
ripple affects all of these other people. Call it the Lakewood Effect.
Resilience.
There you
See,
go.
it's resilience.
Um, there's so many good things in there I want to dive into before I let you go.
Yep. Yep.
Because so you're kind of to recap. So you've got these stories from people, your friends that have gone through this. From my background in fitness, I know people, I've worked with clients that have gone through bariatric surgery, and yes,
Mm-hmm.
a large percentage of them, it's not in a positive light like you've created for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just alone, like the word diet makes me cringe, because 95% of people that diet to lose weight, they regain the weight back within, I think it's 5 years, or
Yes.
they gain more.
Yep.
I'm sure you're aware of these numbers as well. So
Yep. Yep.
for yourself, and we'll dive more into it, but you're doing all of these changes, these systems, these habit affirmations. Like,
Yes.
before the whole COVID thing, you and I were talking about weight training. Like, that's super important to you,
Yep.
and I definitely
Yes.
we're gonna revisit that separate
Yes.
conversation for at home
Mm-hmm.
training. There's some things
Mm-hmm.
there's some things we can do remotely to help you on the gain train. So
Mm-hmm.
looking back now on this huge year of growth and transformation for yourself, what is and we're going to come back to the environments, right? Like, the idea of
Yep.
Lakewood is so much about environment. What is the mental environment you've created for yourself to help keep this movement growing, and what's the physical environment look like? Obviously food is a big part of that, but
Mm-hmm.
what do those systems look like for people?
Okay. So for the mental, I continue to go to the bariatric support group monthly because it does help me keep myself accountable to the program. For one thing, I feel connected to the program, and I feel as long as I'm connected to the program, I'll be making positive progress on myself. Also, that I realize that the surgery is only a tool. That uh, the tool I have is a much smaller stomach. I physically do not have the capacity to eat the way that I used to do. So I have to physically change my eating habits and focus mostly on heavy, dense protein, which is great because I know a lot of protein producers. And I also know that I love vegetables. So being a member of a CSA, which we are doing again this year, since Alicia shut hers down for the year, she's taking a break. We joined back up with Joel over at Lonely Oak Farm, and we're excited about that. We love Joel, and we love what he's doing out there. So healthy, natural, nutritious food, and then heavy on protein is the physical part. Also, the physical part is to stay as active as possible. Riding my bike, hiking, making sure that that I'm doing something every day. Um, and alternating that with hopefully some weight training exercises too, so that it doesn't become lopsided. Um, and then again, the physical or the mental part is just being so much lighter. It has really lightened my mood. I feel like I'm myself again. I have a face I recognize. I'm happy about the way that I look, and that I think that happiness transforms into or transcends into other things. I feel more confident. I feel more at home in my own skin. I feel I'm just happier. I'm a grateful patient. Those are some of the things that have really helped me. And like I said, working with other patients who are just starting the program now, who are really not sure, knowing if I can help them in some way and spark that life in them would be fantastic. So those are some of the things that mentally and physically I'm doing for myself.
I love it, Sarah. I love you. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you,
I'm
Bill.
fired up right now. Um, so, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
thank
I
you
hope that
for.
my message will spark something in somebody. And I don't know how, if they need to reach out to you, that would be great. To reach out to me,
I was gonna say
I'm happy
how can people listening reach out to you to talk
happy to
to
help.
ask questions? Where's the best place for them to reach you?
Well, I suppose you can certainly send me an email. That's probably the best way, or find me on Facebook, for crying out loud. You can send me a message via Facebook and ask me questions, because I'm happy to help.
Perfect. What's your email? I'll tag it.
It's Sarah, SARAHDP65 at gmail.com.
Okay. Let me make
Or
that.
find me on Facebook, Sarah Lakewood.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, I'm. This was really fun. And anytime you
Awesome.
want a co-host, you let me know,
Oh,
because man, I'm right there with you.
you're gonna be a staple in the seasonal AF farm podcast. So I'll be leaning on you. Don't worry.
Okay,
All
I'm
right.
I'm I'm here for you.
Perfect. Everybody listening, watching, thank you for joining us. Episode 100. Thank you, Sarah, for making it
Episode
possible
100.
for celebrating this moment. Loved hearing your story, and I'm excited to share it with everyone.
Yeah. Let's get through this pandemic together and start living life.
Boom. There you go. From Sarah.